welcome to the search rant. This is me just rambling on about different forms of inputs regarding the search phase. So we are in the very first phase, the brain fart phase. So you probably have some ideas yourself. You might actually acting upon one of those ideas. But in short, innovation comes from different angles. We've in the very first slide gave you one example of overview of different inputs. So where do innovations come from? Can either be a shock to a system, it can be by observing others, it can be by legislation, it can be by market impulses. It can come from many different angles. Fun fact though is that just before you go to sleep, before you fall asleep, or just after you woke up, you are in your most creative phase as a human being. That's the spot where where your brain connects different puzzles or pieces of the puzzle, and where you are actually between reality and in your dream status. That's where the magic happens. So some people, like myself for example, have a notepad beside our bed and sometimes write some good ideas down. Not every idea is a good idea, most definitely not every idea is a good idea. So keep in mind, select and focus. Focus on the idea that you want to implement. This also helps very well with other daily struggles other than innovations. So give your subconscious a chance. And by the way, as we will teach you later on in a totally different course, you can also deliberately push yourself mentally in such a state. But that's an entirely topic on its own. The one that I want to focus on, because everything is written out in the literature, which you can find in the videos as well, is the pull versus push inputs. So innovation can be pulled and it can be pushed. In this case, let's start with push, imagine a laboratory where people are working on high-tech stuff or are working with different fluents, and suddenly there's a kaboom and there's like, hey, we had a new invention. So this is where innovation is created in a laboratory, for example, by researchers or different other types of topic. They invent something and then they push it to the market. The iPhone, once again, is a good example of this. They invented it behind the screens and then they deliberately pushed it into the market as a new invention. It could also be, though, that the market demands a new type of innovation, where there's a necessity of a product which currently isn't filled in by anyone in the market, like a hole in the market. This is more a type of a pull information. So the market needs it and you are acting upon that need. So that's an entirely different approach, an approach that's quite new, historically wise. So we used to focus, especially after the Second World War, mainly on the push innovations, because laboratories and scientists from all around the world were mainly innovating, creating innovations, but gradually during the 70s, 80s, we moved more towards the pull market and user demand. These are entirely different approaches towards innovation. As you might have encountered in the slides already, is the discussion whether you should involve your customer in your innovation process as a company. So imagine Henry Ford asking people in the beginning of the 1900s, what would you need to move faster across the globe? As he always famously stated, they would ask him for a faster horse. Instead, he did something else entirely different. He created the automobile industry. He created the Fordmobile. He did this by creating in English, an automatic band where he automated the processes to create cars. So he did it in an efficient manner. But a recap in this regard is, it's a different approach. If he asked his customers, he would invent a faster type of horse. Instead, he did it entirely different. He went to a push status. He created something behind screens, an automobile, and eventually dropped that to the market. A pull example would be, help me out here. Well, that's a question for further thinking. Think about a market need that's currently not filled, like for example solved by blockchain or digital currencies, that's an example of the pull invention. And also think of a blockchain related topic regarding the push variant. So in search phase, a quick recap, we have many different inputs. You can shift them down in two main categories: pull inputs, push inputs, or pull approaches, push approaches. And if you've got them all covered out, if you've got them prioritized, or let me rephrase it, if you've got them all ranked below each other, you will go to the next phase, the select phase. And I think we've covered it all. Once more, read up on the transcript/literature. I think it's called literature, right? Check. Read up on the literature. Darn, Jordi. Read up on the literature, and there you will see that my explanation, or our explanation, is way more structured and it gives you way more in-depth. Of course, the videos do give you a bit of overview. In short, that's all.